Today's podcast is brought to you by a company who we have been using for years and takes up significant shelf space inside of our own kitchen. Biosteel Sports Nutrition.
It was a product created out of necessity 8 years ago and is trusted by athletes like Connor McDavid, Tyler Seguin, Brooke Henderson, Rosie MacLennan, and Andrew Wiggins.
They're really a leader in sports drinks for everyone from professional athletes to everyday champions.
Understand something, guys. Nothing worth ever having in this world comes easy.
Do what these champions doing if you're going to be a champion.
You control your outcome.
Who am I?
I'm a champion.
What up, champions, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Biosteel Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Adrian, with my co-host,
Sylvie.
And we're here breaking down health, wellness, mindset, training. Any questions you have, we want to answer them, right? That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for.
Just here to provide answers and value to all of our loyal listeners. So thank you so much for being here. This week, Sil, what are we talking about?
Very popular topic in nutrition world, calories.
Okay. What is a calorie?
Yeah, very good question. So, we're going to be talking about calories in relation to food. So, when we look at a calorie, it's essentially a form of energy used to raise the heat in our bodies. But in food, we're looking at the amount of calories and the amount of energy in a particular food. So particularly, obviously whole foods, packaged foods, whatever food we're looking at, some have, calorie breakdown, some you have to kind of guess or estimate. So the kilocalorie is what we use to estimate food. So the calories
when you're looking at the package, and
it's actually a kilocalorie.
A kilocalorie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first, I will start by saying that it's all estimates. So we can be up to 25% like error with even just packaged foods and the amount of calories and things. So that's quite a bit of error.
Well, especially if it's on the opposite side of which you want.
Exactly. If you're getting into the really specifics with calorie counting. So each macronutrient provides us different calories per gram of macronutrients. So for example, protein and carbohydrates provide us with 4 calories per gram, whereas fats provide us with 9 calories per gram. And so we actually broke down fats the last 2 times based on nutrition topics. So we've talked about how important fats are. So the whole, lower calorie means lower fat diet has been disproved. So calories just by themselves are important, and we do actually need to pay attention to them because calories in versus calories out, so how much we're expending throughout the day. So we have a certain amount that our bodies are just burning, which is our basal metabolic rate. So if we were to have no activity, there's a certain amount based on our height, weight, and just general activity throughout the day that our bodies are just burning. And then exercise on top of that is going to provide us with more energy burned, so calories burned. So what's important to consider here is that everybody's different, but you will gain weight if you have a surplus of calories in over calories out. And so that's why it is important to pay attention to it. That being said, our macronutrient breakdown of what we just chatted about with the calories does make a difference. So it comes down to a quality versus quantity thing. So if we were to take in an extra 3,500 calories, we will gain a pound of weight.
Right.
Just based off of a rough estimate calculation and just how our
3,500 calories equates to 1 pound.
Exactly.
Right. So in a week, for example, if we had 500 extra calories a day,
exactly,
a pound would be gained theoretically.
Exactly. So calories do matter. And I know that there's a big debate on whether or not, counting calories is the way to follow our nutrition, to lose weight. And in my opinion, we need to pay attention to them. Be aware of what a calorie is, but more importantly, we need to be informed of the impact that the food that we're taking in, so the macronutrients that we take in, have on our hormonal system. So you've probably heard that term, not all calories are created equally. And so that basically breaks down to our macronutrients, the fat, the carbohydrate, and the protein. So if we're looking at, for example, carbohydrates, so if we take in a really heavy carbohydrate meal, and it's, a little higher in calorie, it's also really going to affect our insulin. So it's going to have, and can have a negative effect on our blood sugar, and which can lead to weight gaining as well. So whereas if we take in a really high caloric protein meal, what can happen is we're going to get a little spike of insulin in a certain way, because when we take in food, regardless of the macronutrient, we're going to have an insulin response as well, but we're also going to get a surge of amino acids. So we broke down protein before, and what this is going to do is help to, with neurotransmitter function, it's going to help to balance certain hunger hormones, keep us satiated for a longer period of time, and fat is also part of that as well.
So we could have 1,000 calorie meal, and you could have 1,000 calories coming from French fries.
Yes.
Or we could have 1,000 calories coming from grass-fed bison, let's say.
Exactly.
Okay. And so what we're talking about right now is that those two things are not the same.
Not the same.
Despite the fact that they have the same number.
Yes, exactly. So it comes down to what our body is hormonally going to do with the food that we're taking in. So if you were to eat the same amount of potato chips that you were almonds calorically, what will happen is you'll get a major spike in insulin, blood sugar from the
almonds.
No, you're messing me up. From the potato chips, and then from the almonds, you'll get more fiber. You can't typically eat as much as you could in terms of amount as the potato chips, but you're getting fat, you're getting fiber, which are going to, and a little bit of protein, which are going to help to stabilize your energy, keep you satiated for longer, and typically balance out your hormonal system when it comes to these macronutrients. So what we're looking at when it comes to focusing on counting calories is that we don't necessarily have to focus on the calorie number, but we do have to focus on like a little bit more of the breakdown of macronutrients. So if you're not getting enough fiber and enough protein in particularly, those are going to really impact our satiation and our hunger hormones. And so that's going to create typically an influx of calories consumed because you're not getting the nutrients that you need. So in terms of nutrient dense, that's more so what we want to look at instead of just looking at the calorie specific number. So when I say nutrient dense, our biggest nutrient dense foods come from fruits and vegetables, and then obviously lean sources of protein, healthy versions of fat, which we've been over both sources of those. So that's what's going to give you that long-term energy source, and as well keep you satiated for an extended period of time. If you were to eat just, again, a really rich carbohydrate meal, what can happen is you'll have, again, the spike, and you'll be hungry maybe like 2 hours later. You should be able to go 4 to 6 hours without eating if you have a more balanced metabolism. So if you're taking in a ton of calories from nutrient deficient foods, you're typically going to overeat and gain weight.
What about the trend in smaller snacks that say like 100 calorie snacks?
Yes.
That are really, really popular.
Yeah.
What would you caution someone about that? Or how would you caution someone about that? Or what should they look for in that kind of snack? Or should they avoid it altogether?
Yeah, so there is a big influx of lower calorie foods.
Options,
and, artificial sweeteners and a bunch of different options to keep that calorie number down. The issue is that they don't have enough fiber, they don't have enough protein. So even though they're low caloric, it can sometimes lead to eating more in the end because we're deficient in what we actually need from a micronutrient perspective. So it becomes really difficult to manage the amount that you're taking in when it's just like counting calories all the time. And that being said, you do need to be aware of both, like I said, what a calorie is, how important it is to exercise and expend more energy, burn more calories. But again, your body's way more complex system than calories in, calories out. It's just something that we need to be aware of. But more importantly, we need to be aware of the actual macronutrient content that we're taking in and how that affects our hormones. And I won't get into the whole hormonal talk, but just insulin, for example, is a perfect example, is a great example of what our bodies will do with a really rich nutrient deficient meal as opposed to a nutrient dense meal.
And it gets exhausting.
It gets exhausting. It's not a way of life to be counting all the time. And I don't, I'm talking about macronutrients and how important that is, but I also don't recommend, getting obsessive about counting macronutrients as well. there's a checklist that I go through with my clients to make sure that for the most part, especially when they're starting out, that they have fat, fiber, protein, and color. So if you have those things in your meals, typically, again, you'll be satiated. You're able to go, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours without eating, and your body be fine. You have enough energy to get through. Whereas if you're on this big roller coaster with your hormonal system, in particular with insulin and cortisol and all these other hormones that affect the way that we feel on a regular basis, it will just cause, again, an influx of calories because your body's not getting what it needs in terms of satisfying all of that.
Awesome. I love it. So calories matter, but they're not all that matters.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And quality over quantity.
Quality, yes. And quantity does matter too, right? But,
right.
You do have to consider both of them, but you have to be, aware of the fact that there's not one answer for one body. You have to do what's best for you.
Awesome. But sorry.
Generally speaking, yeah, you have to, obviously pay attention to what works for you.
I love it. Perfect. Thank you as always for being with us. Make sure you head over to biosteel.com. Check out the website. Use the code word
Champ Lifestyle. Capital C, capital L.
And you'll receive 15% off all the products they have to offer. We love having you here. Send us your questions. We'll be back next week with a brand new breakdown. Until then, take care, guys.